Sounds good.
All right, the hour of 6:30 having arrived, going to call the regular meeting of the Columbus Plan Commission to order. Matthew, will you take the roll?
Sure. Johnson.
Here.
Lewis.
Here.
Ashton.
Here.
Monday.
Present.
Zapataki.
Here.
Harpart and Traxler are excused.
All right, we have a quorum.
Yes.
All right, this meeting was properly noticed, posted. Item 4 on the agenda will be to entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, this is the agenda we'll work with tonight. Number 5, approving the minutes from the October 17th meeting.
Have a clarification, the minutes that came in my packet indicate September 19 meeting.
October 17th was a Thursday.
All right. Good on the other
I
side.
put the wrong date.
No, mine's got the 17th.
Mine says 17th. September's was the 19th.
Very good. Printing off the wrong one then.
I'll entertain a motion to approve or amend.
Also move.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? None. All those approve signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes from 10:17 are approved. All right, item number 6, open comment for citizens. See none present. So we'll move on to number 7, unfinished business. I'm not aware of any, commissioners. All right. Moving on to item number 8, new business. We have review and discuss draft chapters of the comprehensive plan. We want to tackle this first, or do we want to take item B first, which is zoning application? Take care of that
We can go through the comp plan first.
business. Okay.
That's fine.
All right. Well, we'll stay in order here. So, Matthew, will you, as you have done in other meetings, lead us through it?
Sure. This is kind of an initial draft of the transportation. I know there's a few things that need to get beefed up yet, and just before we go too far, I've been sick, so you're just gonna have to bear with me. Really going through on this first page here, the first paragraph, as always, is basically a summary that of what this element statutorily needs to require. And this is basically taken from state guidance. The second paragraph is looking at issues, and this is just kind of a brief summary resulting from the Roadmap 2050, the citizen engagement team that we did earlier in 2019. The big issue that came out, I mean, there are others, but right now I'm just including the big issue of street conditions. I mean, it was pretty, going through the survey results, going through the community conversations that we had, it was really apparent that the condition that our streets are in were a big concern to our citizens. So, and then basically for the transportation, I mean, what I do is kind of work through by mode, kind of the different sectors, and I guess briefly go through them. So like the first, talking about highway and streets. So really, this is the way this gets broken down by the state and federal levels. You have this functional classification, and you break it down into different categories. I recently, the Southwest region contacted the city, and they're going to be updating the functional class here shortly. So this is the most current information that will be updated. So you're talking about going from, well, first off, for the functional classification is for the urban areas, and since we're 5,000 or larger, that's how we qualify as an urban area for this. Otherwise, we'd be designated under a different, or the rural designation. So the main types are principal arterials, and the description there, but the only principal arterial that runs through the city limits is US 151. And then minor arterials, that's obviously the description there. It's a little bit, it's more of the connector streets that have high traffic. So in the city, James Street is considered a minor arterial, and Park Avenue is also designated as a minor arterial.
Even though it's a state highway?
What?
Even though it's a state highway?
Yeah, correct.
So the
It-
federal
it-
highway is the only one that really counts.
No. These are all determined by traffic counts. So the classification is arterial, minor arterial, or collector. It's all determined by traffic counts.
Okay.
And then they have essentially, I didn't really have to do much work on it. It was the Southwest region. They have their formula. They go through it and figure out which streets based on traffic counts get which classification. They give it to us, and the city staff then basically either agrees with their findings. And as I said, we got something from the Southwest region recently, and we'll have to send a letter of concurrence to the DOT saying, yeah, we agree with what you show. Yes.
What does ADT stand for?
Annual average daily traffic.
Average daily traffic.
Yes.
Right. Maybe spell that out and then put ADT in friends. Suggestion.
No, you're right. I go back to the WISDOT days of the talking in the, yes. Yeah, well, acronyms, yeah. Well, and quite frankly, when I'm doing a final draft, I'll probably need to do, an appendix with acronyms and appendix with definitions of things, just because sometimes it gets maybe too technical. All right, so the minor arterials, as I said, are basically James Street, and then Park Avenue 73 through town, and then collectors basically are the next tier down. So like Dick Street is a good example of a collector where there's more traffic on it than James Street, but it's not a local street. So it's kind of those in between streets. So here we have, let's see, Mill Street or Lewis Street was identified, Dick Street was identified, Mill Street was identified, Dickinson Boulevard was identified as a collector, and Tower Drive was also identified as a collector. So just kind of some of the, I guess, the side streets that end up getting a little bit more traffic than the main streets through town. So and it should have had Farnham on there too. Yeah, Farnham State 89. So and then anything else is considered local if it doesn't meet that certain threshold. That's regardless of jurisdiction. It's considered a local street. I mean, obviously there's still jurisdiction at play, but I'm just saying as far as the classification goes. So, and one thing I am going to add is a map that has traffic counts throughout the city. I haven't had a chance to create that yet. But that obviously I think is a critical piece just to show kind of what the traffic counts are. So moving on to the next section, talking about commuting patterns, looking at table 1, you can really see that table 1 is at the top of page 3, by the way. It's 86% of those who commute to work, or 85.6% are doing it by not carpooling. They just drive to work alone. another 8% carpool. And then you have the next largest percent is 4.6% that work at home. And all the others are 1.7. It's kind of interesting that, it's obviously you can see that whether we're carpooling or not, we're very auto dependent here. Almost 95% and 94%. So, I mean, that's kind of an interesting trend. And the other thing is looking at the mean travel time to work. One of the things I thought was interesting is that it is a little bit higher than the state, but we're slightly under the county. But if you recall from our last time we talked about economic development and we looked at the commuting patterns under that, or where people are going to get work, it was like a quarter of the people who are employed that live in the city, a quarter of them are going to Madison. So it's not surprising that, that 25 minutes and you see that number, just because of that. Kind of building off of the carpooling, one thing I like to always mention is the van pooling program that DOA offers. It's basically, if you're not aware of the program, if you go online, you can enter into a carpool that the state arranges. You pay a certain, depending on your how far you travel from where you're picked up to where you go, you pay a certain amount every 2 weeks that comes out of your paycheck, and or I think can be direct deposited, but it's just a good program that helps alleviate in the Madison, and this is only available in the Madison area. So it really helps alleviate people like traveling downtown Madison for work. There's 2 spots that pick up here in town. St. Jerome's has a van pool, and then there's one that picks up at Pick and Save. So just moving down for transit, obviously we do not have a transit system here in the city. But I did note that we have Lamers Connect that has intercity bus from Madison to Green Bay, that provides service to the Columbus. They make a drop at the Amtrak station twice a day. So,
So does it go from Madison to here on to Green Bay?
correct.
And
We're
vice versa?
we're a stop on the way to Green Bay. So
once,
it makes
once each
basically 2
direction.
trips to Green Bay and then back.
Okay. And then it goes from here to Green Bay, and then there's one that comes from Green Bay here on the way to
Correct.
Madison. Thank you.
Let's see. Talking about facility or transportation for the elderly and disabled, the Columbia County Commission on Aging has a few services that are available. I just basically went onto their website and pulled in their information that that lets you know what is available. You can schedule a ride by basically calling them 24 hours in advance, and I think it's a minimum $5 charge, and you can go out of the county for certain things, and then also I think for medical appointments are given a higher priority than if you're calling them to go grocery shopping or something of that nature. So, but it was a good service that the county provides. Just wanted to make note of that. Next on page 3, talking a little bit about bicycle and pedestrian facilities. So right now in town, well, we have existing trails and sidewalks and roads that are available. Well, the roads are supposed to be for bikers, just so not pedestrians, if possible. I do note that there in some areas of town sidewalks are not available. That's generally kind of in the west side of the city, kind of most west of Hibbert Street, in some of the areas that were probably platted in like the late to mid 60s. The subdivisions out there on that side of town don't have it. And I also think down in like Parkview Estates, kind of south, and I guess that would be south and east of town, going towards the hospital. I don't think there's a lot of sidewalk facilities in that neighborhood as well. I did put that we're kind of piece by piece working on a night trail network. I know this year they finished, they redid the trail that kind of goes from Fireman's Park to by the tennis courts there, and then I think Washington Park was redone. I just kind of put in here as a note, as development occurs throughout the city, we should be mindful of the trail network and make some connections. And then I just added that we should also explore using the waterways as, and have a trail system near waterways. It does a couple things that are good. One, it gives you some connection to nature, which I think is needed in our community. And the other thing would be using a trail space as green space along the river. It helps, it creates green space along the river, and then there's no development along that space, and that mitigates the negative impacts that could happen in a flood event. So, and then the last thing I note is Columbia County has, if you're not aware of this, they have I think 15 different bicycle loops that basically are on street that are signed on the highways, and the city is located. Loop 8 goes right through the heart of our town, so if you're looking for a bike route, I would encourage you to go out there, and if not, just email me. I can shoot you the link. But any questions so far? I feel like normally I get more questions. All right, I guess must have hit all the high points. All right, next is rail service. Talking about rail, obviously, is a big component of transportation system, especially for freight. It has a large impact on the transportation system in general and our economy. Obviously, the big thing to note is that we are obviously right on a Class 1 railroad with Canadian Pacific, and basically just the one thing I noted there for that is that their line basically goes from Chicago. If you look at the map, it comes through essentially comes through Wisconsin, goes through the Twin Cities, out through North Dakota, and then goes all the way out to basically Vancouver. So the Port of Vancouver, it's kind of their long haul route, if you will.
We don't have any industries that use that railroad, do we?
I'm pretty sure there's a siding behind American Packaging, isn't there?
The American Packaging is far out, but wasn't Fromm gonna hook up on it?
Well,
And-
Fromm it, yes, and Drexel also has space
Yeah.
for a siding, but
The
I
other
don't
ones
know.
from there east, most
Well,
of them are far out.
To the north of there, I know Vita Plus, when they had their CSM approved, they left a half-acre strip along the parcel they have out there, specifically for a rail siding. So there's a handful, and then there's kind of off behind Columbus Fall River Road, between there and the railroad, there's a 26-acre site for development that could also potentially tie into the rail system. I know it's with the Class 1's model being a longer haul, sometimes they're less hesitant for sidings if there's not a substantial amount of business being generated from those stops. But it's not impossible.
The language in here sort of seems to say that Columbus is plugged in to the freight rail network, and that's not really the case. I mean, there's certainly a lot of potential for it, and the possible ability to do that, but like I was reading ahead, and it, the last line on page 6 just about says, rail service is available through Canadian Pacific connects Columbus to the freight net.
Yeah.
And it's there, but it's like
Yeah.
having a freeway going through your town that doesn't have an on-ramp.
Yeah.
I mean, could you put one in? And maybe if you, get it is really a lot like an
Yeah.
on-ramp, right? Not a freeway with an on-ramp. You'd have to negotiate with the DOT
Mhm.
and show a need for it and all this other
Oh, yeah.
stuff. Same thing with the sidings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And connections.
Yeah, no, that's a
would
good,
sure-
yeah. Moving on to passenger rail under Amtrak, just put some basic information under Amtrak. Basically, where the station's located. We're on the Empire Builder route, which basically starts in Chicago, goes to Milwaukee, and then goes all the way out and ends in Seattle. There's 2 stops every day. There's one that's heading eastbound, which stops around, it's supposed to be here around like 1 o'clock. And then there's the one heading westbound, which leaves town about 5:30. I went on the Amtrak and pulled some data down for ridership, and you can see that in table 2. One of the things that you'll kind of note is that really it's somewhat steady. I mean, this is only 4 years, so I don't think this really tells you, all the trends that. But what you can see in here is the stations that are on the Empire Builder route that going through Wisconsin. So you see Columbus, La Crosse, Milwaukee, Portage, Toma, and the Dells. And the one thing I when I was looking at this data, the one thing I like to look at was mainly Portage, Toma, and the Dells, because I feel like those are kind of like stations along this route. And for the most part, other than the Dells, our ridership is either added or a little bit higher. I noticed ridership all over the state declined a little bit in 18. But granted, when we say ridership, this says fiscal year 16. It's the federal fiscal year because it's Amtrak. So it goes from October 1 through September 30th. So just keep in mind it's not calendar year, it's federal fiscal year. I probably should put that note in here somewhere. But it still gives you a good idea of what the ridership is. Looking at the next page, which I thought was fairly interesting, was the revenues. In the revenues, I didn't have the data going as far back, but I still had the 17 and 18 revenues. You can see that we're the third as far as total revenue behind Milwaukee and La Crosse. For 17 and 18. The one thing that really jumps out is when you break it down per rider, ours is by far the highest. And when you look at the data that Amtrak has, you can see some of the popular destinations, and there's a lot going to Montana from our train station. So we have a lot, and we have a lot of longer fares compared to the other stations. So obviously that's what drives up the revenue compared to the others for the revenue per rider. So it's just something to note, I guess if you're ever worried about Amtrak, maybe closing a station or looking at that, I would think because we have more efficiency that our stop would always be, I guess, valued more than some of the others, especially when you look at like Portage or Toma. But that's just, I guess, my take on that. But I just thought it was interesting to see kind of how we fared compared to the other stations. The other thing I did note is that right now, the Twin Cities, Milwaukee, Chicago intercity passenger rail service is being explored. That could really have a large impact on Columbus. So what they're looking at is as the name implies, from the Twin Cities to Milwaukee to Chicago. It's a regional rail route that it operates on the same line as the Empire Builder but they're not going to call it the Empire Builder, but it's going to be a second route. The thing about that is it's really good is the reliability will be better because right now, if you're on the train that comes in from the west heading to the east, they have issues west of the Twin Cities on the rail lines they operate on, so they're constantly late by the time they get to Columbus. So it'll provide better reliability, and generally they find with the regional train routes that the ridership is more than 1.5 times the typical ridership. So, granted, that was from some data that last figure I got was I didn't put it in the plan because I got it from the WISARP, Wisconsin Association of Rail Passengers, and their data, and I haven't verified that yet. But I mean, if you take that figure, you'd think that the second regional route would add, 16,000 on top of the 11,000 we got. So you're talking, 25,000 people going through Columbus each year, getting on off. Yes, Bob.
What difference has it made in revenue, ridership, whatever you want to look at, when they took the permanent employee away, the ticket salesperson, to everything being online at the station? Did that have much of an impact on anything?
What year did they go away? Do you know?
A year and a half, 2 years, approximately.
I could only get 2 year of revenue data. They didn't. For the sheets they had it on, for whatever reason they couldn't. I mean, I'm sure I could have called them and tried to find it, but like for whatever reason.
The one that worked here, that ran the ticket office here, ended up having to go to Milwaukee.
Okay.
Is there anything that we as a plan commission or common council could do that would potentially lend impetus to the effort to decision-making process on whether to add a second line or not? Would a resolution from this body or the council, are they seeking public comment? Anything that we could do that would potentially aid in the effort?
I think a resolution would help. Yes. And I guess that it's something where I guess I think I need to do a little more research of where they're at in that process. I know at one point there was issues with the state budget and trying to get because there's a few infrastructure projects that are related to this before they could actually open a second line that need to be completed, and those items were once in the budget then taken out. But I would also note that and it is a lobbying group, but the folks from WISARP, which is the Wisconsin Association of Railroad Passengers, and Terry Brown would probably be more than happy to come to speak to council sometime if we wanted to invite him.
Well, or conversely, if they would like our assistance, I would encourage us to be sensitive to their efforts, and when we could timely be of assistance and throw whatever it's worth behind an effort, because that would be a boon to Columbus to get a second train going each direction, and rather than be reactive, if we can be proactive and do any form of lobbying or whatever, I think it would potentially be to our benefit.
Okay. Any other questions on the Amtrak section? All right, moving on to aviation. Just talking, obviously the closest airport for commercial airport is the Dane County Regional Airport in Madison. It is as I say, it's a commercial service airport. Also, there's a medium general aviation airport in Portage that is, I guess, within the county, so it's close as well. One thing to note that both of those airports, when you look at the WISDOT's airport improvement program, there are projects for both both the Dane County Regional Airport, and also there's about $5.2 million in project over the next 5 years for Portage as well. I didn't really have anything to add on that. Any questions?
What about Juneau? Dutch County. Juneau's got the airport there too. About the same distance as Portage.
Okay, I can add that.
I do know the Juneau Airport is slated some large.
All right. This next section, I honestly I added because when I left WISDOT, we were wrapping up the freight plan, and I thought it was important to, even though we're talking specifically modes here. I thought freight is a component of transportation that I thought we should address. So I just put a little information in here about the freight plan, and then just talked a little bit, that State Highway 60 and 151 are identified in that plan as an oversized overweight route. Then also portions of 1660 and 73 and 89 are oversized overweight for the high clearance. So, it's a, I guess, different kind of oversized overweight. Yes, Brad.
Just here to spell it there.
Yes. And then I just put kind of a brief note that, yeah, and as you said, kind of like the rail service, maybe I should take that out since I could say race may be available because,
You're right.
It's
It might
technically-
be available because, the class ones usually want, 50 to 100 cars to pick up. That's what my question was. We don't have anybody that's generating cars, but
no.
they may pick up one or two. They may pallet place in Fall River,
Yeah.
somebody may generate enough for them to stop. So it's available, and by law, they're supposed to, but it doesn't how much they're gonna charge.
Yeah.
So,
Well-
yes, they'll offer service, but it might,
No, yeah, I've been through,
so it's possibly available.
yeah. The one thing that I've kind of kept in my mind and that may be appropriate for not Columbus, but the Columbus area is there's an opportunity out there for a multimodal freight yard. And the discussion was always been, when I was at WISDOT, it was always assumed that it was going to be in the Milwaukee 7-county area, somewhere in there. I don't think our area would be that terrible.
There
I
are
don't
more,
know.
there's more discussions about that, and I'm surprised at actually how many areas they've talked about it. I've been out of the loop on it, but it is definitely an active
Yeah.
pursuit project to get, one or more intermodal yards running to some degree. So, yeah, even something in the area, but it's gonna be on one of the main lines.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Well, in the thing for our community, it might not happen just looking at in the city. It probably wouldn't happen in the city because I think you'd need more than 20 acres. I think you'd need a fairly large site to accommodate it. So where it would go, I don't know, but it could happen maybe to an area, I guess, north and to the east of town, but that would be out in the town of Elba. But you'd also probably have to put some an infrastructure in for roads to get to it. I don't know if I don't know. I guess I
But
need
being
more
a
detail
partner
from what
for
the
that
state.
kind of thing, there's plenty of industry in Columbus and Fall River, not Beaver Dam,
Yeah.
right? Being a partner in something like that, even if it's not in your community, would benefit your.
Oh,
so,
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, something like that, I think something like that would benefit not only like a smaller area like that, but I'm talking like 5, 10, 20 county area. I mean, if you're within a couple hour drive of that, I think that really impacts your business. And especially, you know, if you can somehow tie it into like the Port of Milwaukee, and then you also have, you know, rail service, port service, road. I mean, I think that would be ideal. And I think that's why when I was at WISDOT, that's why I thought, or the discussion always seemed to assume it'd be somewhere in the Milwaukee area, somewhere in that 7-county area, around Milwaukee. But I mean, yeah. And then, I don't know if I said, we don't have a port, or I mean, we have the crawfish. So,
Should we work on getting one?
yeah, we'll dredge something out. We'll make the Monday Canal go right through, connect over to the Mississippi. So
That's got malaria written all over it.
I need to beef this up, and I need to obviously, you know, but for the first draft, it had the content that I think we needed for the transportation. Any questions on this?
I don't have a question, but I do have an observation, seeing that I was at the public information meeting on the Hibbert Street project last night, and I do find it interesting that in the very first paragraph, it talks about transportation systems, the need for transportation systems for persons with disabilities, bicycles, electrical personal assistive mobility devices, walking, etc. And in that there was a lot of discussion last night on Hibbert Street and whether to have sidewalks or not. I do find it interesting that the transportation plan lists those areas as being important and, in my mind, essential. You know, we are, as a society, aging, and I think there's going to be a greater need for electric personal assistive mobility devices and an encouragement of walking. And I think that the extent that we support putting sidewalks in areas that historically haven't had them, I think that's important. I'm glad to see that mentioned in this section of the report. Thank you.
Are you collecting ideas for the goals, objectives, and policies parts yet? Just things that get tossed out there. I know we aren't in a discuss them, but
Well, we can if you want. I mean,
the couple of observations I had talking about utilizing the railroad, right? Probably one of the steps to that, if something that's maybe used by multiple industries or multiple communities, is to make sure we're assessing how well the industries in town are served by roadway infrastructure. I can't think of any particular industry here in town that's not served well, but that would be something to make sure we think about.
I have a couple that come to mind.
Right. So,
It could be, I mean,
right, that's
because
exactly what I said, you know,
No,
just because
well,
I'm not
be-
thinking of it doesn't
No,
mean
because
somebody
we're an
else would.
old rail town.
Right.
You know, there's the Vita site that, I mean, I see Vita trucks drive down Dickinson in front of my office all day. Not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but I mean, Dickinson isn't built for freight, you know, and Gar is another one where they have their facility that's back along the rail, surrounded by a residential neighborhood, and you see semi trucks driving back there, and it's one of those things where it's built into the fabric of Columbus, because that's how the industry started, was along the rail. So it's still kind of a remnant of the past, and I think as things, and I know like Vita, for instance, they've I think it's, you know, they've taken steps to maybe move away from that facility maybe in the future, depending on how the economy goes. So, but yeah, it's still something that we have to, I guess, be cognizant of.
And then the other observation I had was the potential for another couple stops on the rail passenger line, right? The facility we have for park probably barely adequate now. The advantage of having another couple stops on the line is not economically for Columbus. It's not the people who are already on the train passing through. It's people who come here to get on it, right?
Mhm.
So that kind of infrastructure, starting to think about and plan.
Yeah.
You're right. Parking wasn't, unless they changed it, but wasn't part of Dickinson Boulevard supposed to be overflow parking for Amtrak?
I don't think there's any restrictions other than.
No, there
winter.
was supposed to be designated signage even.
I've walked down there. I don't remember seeing any signage, but certainly those excuse me. Certainly those who are need parking can definitely come out to Dickinson and park, I believe. I don't think there's any restrictions to that block between Mill and Church Street.
I'm talking about being more proactive than, oh yeah, I think somebody's got somewhere to park. You know, right? And Amtrak is only going to do whatever Amtrak wants to do, right? I think it's going to be more of a city planning process to have good accommodations, right? Because that's really the only opportunity for economic advantage to having more people use a line.
I'll just also note that the city engineer and Rupert Milky recently put together a grant application for the MLS. I don't know what the acronym stands for, so forgive me. I think it's probably
Major League Soccer. Big
Yes.
stadium.
It's probably multimodal something. Okay.
Yeah.
And one of the streets that we're looking at doing is Dickinson, and redo, slightly widening in it, and then changing the parking, especially the parking in front of City Hall here, because we probably could go from, I think there's like 30, from the design they had, there's like 35 stalls out there right now, and you probably could get an extra 10 just by making them the normal width. And the thought would be also to basically extend sidewalks so it makes the Amtrak station more inviting to walk into our downtown. Because if you're actually down there now, the sidewalk really doesn't go all the way into the Amtrak station. It's kind of, I don't know, it's not most pedestrian friendly. So we're looking at that grant, and hopefully it could do that. And there's another possibility maybe for a project on Dickinson where it would kind of incorporate some of these concepts, especially around the Amtrak station. But my thought was that we, at that time, maybe you do some signage saying that it designated as overflow parking. I don't know, that would be something that council would have to discuss, I think. But I think there's an opportunity there for sure if we have the regional train to have more parking on that block of Dickinson. So
I think that Uriah's point is a good idea, is if we find out where that second line plan is, is it, a hypothetical, or is it really getting close to done? Is that really is something to look at? For somebody coming from out of town, it does look like a really weird place to park. Not sure if you're in the right spot. It's all gravel surrounded by industrial.
yeah.
You really do not know if you're going to get towed or not. So I think that would be worth our time to look into, and at minimum, augment the signage a little bit. Say, this is acceptable, and you can park up here overnight or over the weekend. That would make, and then, add in some kind of sidewalk, draw people downtown. Yeah, I mean, that would fit nicely. A forward-looking plan is all about.
Yeah.
Very good idea. But in that you brought up the MLS grant and Rupert Milky, in addition, they are submitting an application on behalf of the city as well to tie up and create new sections of bike trail. Also, we do have grant applications that will be going forward, and to beef up our bike trail system. And the council, at least at the committee of the whole level, worked with Rupert Milky on setting a funding level that we want to submit with our application. But we are pursuing, with Rupert Milky's behalf, benefit assistance, 2 different programs, one to redo Dickinson and one to augment the bike trails. I believe is the whole thing.
Well,
of
yeah,
Dickinson.
from James to the train station.
Yes.
It's not,
No.
Correct.
Correct.
I believe, I believe that's the extent. All right. No. Well, and yeah, let's see. That's fine. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I was going to say, I've drank a lot so far. If it was something else, I'd be under the table.
All right, let's rescue Matt from himself. And any other comments or input for this draft chapter? These are the exciting ones.
Yeah,
Appreciate your help. Looks like it's coming together.
taking longer than I'd like, but yeah. All right. Should I just jump into it?
Yeah, we're going to move on to
Hey.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, this zoning permit application and certificate of zoning compliance. Now, this is not somebody's application. This is we're talking about the form that people
Correct.
would use to apply for.
And the form I would
Yes,
give them,
okay.
assuming I get an application, this is what I'd give them back to. So, and we talked about this last month. So, before we moved it to council, I think last month Uriah and Ed were not in attendance. So I think we wanted to have everybody's concurrence. So at least this time with you two here and whoever, with Andy and Ed Parpart not being here, I think it works out fine because we want to move this forward to council. We can. One of the things that's kind of held this whole thing up, and we wanted to make sure we had a fee in place for this. And right now, city staff is going through and actually looking at our fee schedule. And one of the things that we're going to be adding to the fee schedule is a certificate for zoning compliance. And this is just meant to be a simple. So right now, if you're doing something and you're getting a building permit in the city, essentially, in a lot of cases, when our building inspector gives you a sign off, that is also signing off on the zoning, and that's something that GEC doesn't necessarily always feel comfortable with doing, and having this process in place, and this process has been done in other communities. Most notably, that one of my friends works in Sun Prairie. I talked with him and used a similar process. So if you're doing any sort of new building or new construction or addition to a commercial or residential structure, I need to verify that it meets all the setback requirements and other zoning requirements. If you're occupying a new commercial space, if it's a new use or it's a change of use, I need to look at that. And then also if you're doing any sort of like grading, parking expansion, major grading work, that needs to also be signed off on. I also put an other in there just for any sort of things that I can't think of now that just might need some sort of zoning review. And then basically it's pretty simple. You give me your name, if it's a business, you give me your business name and email, phone number, property address. Also, obviously, I put a line in here. If you're a leaseholder, you're obviously your landlord has to sign off on this. And then it basically come in. I'd have a few days to review it and get back to them, and then give them their zoning certificate, zoning compliance, which I think by our code, if I remember correctly, under 114-149, I think it's like I have 5 business days to get back to them or something like that, which if I'm not on vacation, I mean, it's not going to take me more than probably 20 minutes to review most. But really, the one thing I go through is then I go through and I fill out this form, and I basically, double check to make sure shoreline zoning doesn't apply, floodplain, check for floodplain, check for accessory structures, check for all the things in the code. And then I'll either just give them a yes or no and sign off on it, and then I'll give this back to them. And this is their record that they are okay by our zoning code to do what they're doing. A lot of times right now, this doesn't happen. As I said, building permits usually is the way that these are technically blessed. But this is just a way to kind of clean up the process. One thing you also note on the certificate, I also CC the fire chief, the building inspector, the city administrator, and then plan commission. So every month there would be a report that'd come to you guys that'd say, hey, this is what I approved for a zoning permit. So you know kind of what I'm doing, because I, as the zoning administrator, I have the authority to issue these, but it's still, I need to report to somebody. Of course, if I deny one for whatever reason, they can always go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. But I mean, most likely I wouldn't deny one unless, they didn't meet the setback requirements, or they didn't, if it was in the floodplain or something like, I mean, obviously you'd have to have some sort of justification and just say, wow, like, I can approve your permit. So, any questions on this? I know we discussed it last month.
What are you looking at for a fee? You see, you get a fee on the
It was 20
certificate, and then the fee on the other
What
one.
I'm stealing what Sun Prairie did. They charge $25, just a small fee. Quite frankly, for most of them, for most of my time, we probably would come out ahead, but I'm sure there's going to be a couple where I'm going to take more time to review it than others, and over time it's just going to offset the cost of issuing these. I mean, we don't need to be making money off of this. I mean, it's just, but it's something that needs to be done, right? We need to double check to make sure that what people are doing meets our zoning code. And I don't blame it makes sense to have this structure in place. And just so we're clear, the certificate of zoning compliance, that was already in our code. So really, this is just creating a process to actually meet something that was in our code that, honestly, for a change that we thought our code made sense on. A lot of the stuff in our code is like, we need it. And I'm working with our city attorney to slowly make sure our code gets, I mean, it'd be nice if we had time to just like rewrite everything, but it's just not the reality. Any questions on this? Now, I did put take potential action. At some point here, I'd want the council to review this and discuss it. I'm probably going to sync it up with, and I'm looking at Ed because Ed's on council. I'm going to sync it up with when we talk about the fee schedule, thinking that they should go through at the same time.
We just had something come to the cow on, was it this? Section 18 and...
No, that was section 18 is a rewrite of the building code because the building code was outdated, referred to wrong administrative code, and we needed that for delegated municipal authority and delegated, there's also something with delegated electrical permits that Dion needed that for. And then I know we also broke the property maintenance section out of the building code into its own separate chapter, which was Paul's recommendation after discussion at development team.
Yes, I suggest linking this up.
Okay.
More sense for efficiencies.
I guess at this point then,
I think we could approve it now, and then it can hang until you're ready to bring it before the council.
So then I guess I'd be looking for a motion.
I've got a couple of comments.
Oh.
I have some constructive comments for implementing into here.
Okay.
But I can get you those at a different point in time. At council, like, by code, council has to approve the fee schedule. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Does council need to explicitly approve the form you use? Or has that been delegated to you as staff by saying you have to have
No,
one?
I guess I'm doing that more as a courtesy,
Okay.
more of a discussion, so they know, because it is a new process, I want them to understand what the process is,
Sure.
I guess. I mean,
Tell you what, I will
So, I
simply
mean-
give you my marked up version of this with my comments, and
is that bad?
it'll just be for clarity.
Okay.
I can give them to you verbally now, and you could be furiously scribbling, and we'd all sit here
No,
and listen to me for 10 minutes,
I
or I
will,
can just give you
you
a
know
piece
what,
of paper that's marked up.
we can save the time, so I will be
Right.
gladly take your notes, thank you.
So I suggest then we table this to the next meeting so that you can do that.
That's
Because
fine with me,
it's-
there's not, it's not,
In that, we don't want to take action on something that you're then giving him.
That's why I asked. That's
Correct.
why I asked if this is really an actionable item at
That's fine.
council. What's the purpose of sending it to council so that they know where we are in the process? Do they have to explicitly approve the exact form that gets used, or do you simply want to clue them in and say, "Look, we've been working through this. This is to help fulfill the need in our code to have a certificate of zoning compliance, but details are still going to get worked out at staff level." What's your
Yeah.
intent?
I'm sorry.
Is your intent to have them give a seal of approval to a final form document?
Yeah.
Then we should table.
Yeah, I want them to see what we're gonna be using.
Okay.
And acknowledge it, and then just understand it, I'm sorry.
Just keep it under old business.
Yeah.
Turn it into old business for next meeting.
Yeah, all right, well then, there's only one thing left.
I see number 9.
Yeah.
All right.
Second that motion to adjourn.
I've got a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
27.